Derek and I had been together for nearly a year and a half when he suggested the cabin trip. The cabin was 3 hours outside the city, tucked away in the woods with no neighbors in sight. At first, it felt magical. We cooked dinner side by side, opened a bottle of wine by the fireplace, and curled up on the couch, talking about spring plans. But I couldn't help but notice how Derek kept glancing at his phone every few minutes.
Work email?
I asked. Yeah, just some stuff I need to handle when we get back. I didn't push it. He'd been fussing about some Chinese clients lately. We went to bed at around midnight. I fell asleep thinking about what ring he might have hidden in his bag. At 3 a.m, loud footsteps woke me up. My first thought was deer, but the rhythm was too steady. I shook Derek awake.
Someone's outside.
He blinked at me, confused. It's probably just an animal. But right then, a soft scraping sound echoed against the living room window, and we both jumped out of bed. We crept toward the living room. The cabin was small, with just one bedroom, a bathroom, and an open living area with a kitchenette. Most of the windows had these thick curtains that the owner had left closed, but we'd open them during the day to see the lake view. When we looked toward the living room window, my heart stopped. There was a man's face pressed against the glass. He was pale and gaunt, with eyes that were too wide and a smile that looked wrong. His breath was fogging up the window. Jesus Christ, Derek whispered, backing away a little. We blinked, and the face disappeared. There were more footsteps moving around the cabin. He was circling it, and every few seconds, there'd be a soft tap on a different window, like he was testing them.
We need to call the cops,
I said, fumbling for my phone. Signal's terrible out here, Derek replied, already dialing. The owner gave me his number for emergencies. I'll try him first. Derek's phone kept dropping the call. He tried 3 times before it finally connected, but it went straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, the man kept moving from window to window, tapping and testing. When he reached the one near the kitchen, he stopped and stared right at us. Up close, I could see he was mid-30s with dark hair plastered to his forehead. Even though it was freezing outside, sweat dripped down his temples, and his face was flushed like he'd been running. "Let me in! I'm cold!" "Get the hell away from here!" Derek shouted. The man just kept staring with that stretched smile plastered across his face. "Please, I'm so cold! Just let me in for a minute!" Derek was frantically dialing 911 now. It took 4 tries before the call finally went through. He yelled our location, screaming that someone was breaking in. The man's smile dropped in an instant. His face went completely blank before it contorted with rage. He ran to the front door and started kicking. The whole cabin shook, wood splintered with each impact. "I'll kill her! Open the door! Go away! The cops are coming!" Derek shouted, backing away. Everything went dead quiet. For about 30 seconds, I thought he'd run off, maybe scared of the police. But then, he showed up at that kitchen window again. "You didn't tell her, Derek."
Wait a sec. You know this guy?
Derek didn't answer. He just stood there, staring at the man in the window. The man pulled back, then slammed his head into the glass over and over. Blood streaked down the window. The glass cracked, and thin lines spread from the impact point. "Jesus, Jake, stop!" Derek yelled. But Jake didn't stop. His forehead split open. Blood poured down his face as he kept ramming his head into that window. The cracks spread wider. "Please!" Derek's voice broke. "Jake, please stop!" Jake slammed harder. The window was about to shatter. "I'm sorry!" Derek screamed, dropping to his knees. "I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry!" Jake stopped and stood there, swaying, while blood dripped from his face onto the snow below. And he smiled. "I told you I love you, Derek. I can't see you with anyone else." Saying this, he turned and walked into the darkness. I looked at Derek, who was still sobbing on his knees. I should have told you earlier, Olivia. The cops showed up about 45 minutes later. By then, Derek told me most of it. The man's name was Jake. They'd been together for 2 years. Derek had been seeing both of us this entire time. He lives 2 hours north, Derek said, voice shaking. I told him I had work trips. He didn't know about you. I thought I could just figure it out.
Figure what out?
I choked. Who I wanted to be with. I kept meaning to end it with him, but
you didn't.
he shook his head. He found out somehow. Saw something on my social media. I don't know. He started calling, texting, saying he was coming to us. I thought he was just upset that he'd cool off.
He tracked you here?
He must have followed us or put something on my phone. I don't know. The cops searched, but Jake was gone. They found blood in the snow outside the kitchen window and footprints leading into the woods. We drove home the next morning. I broke up with him in my apartment parking lot. Derek kept apologizing, saying he'd made a mistake, that he loved me, that Jake was unstable, and he'd been afraid to tell me the truth. But all I could think about was that night. The way Jake had looked at Derek with so much pain and rage that he'd literally smashed his own head through a window. I even posted in social media to let everyone know that Derek and I aren't together anymore. I hope Jake have read so that he doesn't see me as a threat anymore. My dad left before I was even born. It was my mom who raised me alone against the world. I was 10 years old that Christmas. My mom, Erica, had just finished making dinner. It was simple: mashed potatoes, roasted chicken, and her special apple pie. She worked 2 jobs, so Christmas Eve was one of the few nights she could actually sit down and smile for a while. The lights on the tree flickered in red and green, reflecting in the windows like tiny stars. I remember how delighted she looked when she handed me a candy cane and said,
Merry Christmas, my little man.
For a while, it was perfect, until we heard the knock. It was close to midnight. Mom frowned.
That's strange. Who could it be this late?
The knock came again, louder this time.
Stay here, Noah.
She whispered and went to the door.
Who is it?
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, ma'am. Delivery for your family.
My mother's brow furrowed.
I didn't order anything.
My mom looked through the peephole, and I watched color drain from her face. Her eyes widened, but before she could speak, the man outside started kicking our door like he was desperate to get in. I screamed, not knowing what was happening. My mom told me to hide, but I couldn't move in fear. After some violent kicks, our door gave in. Mom grabbed me to her chest and we darted back to the corner, watching a man dressed in a bloodied Santa suit walk into our living room. His eyes looked empty, like he wasn't really there.
Is this how you welcome Santa?
He growled. In his gloved hand was a long kitchen knife, glinting under the Christmas lights. Mom shoved the table against him, sending plates crashing.
Run, Noah!
I froze. The man lunged, knocking the table aside like it was nothing. Mom grabbed my arm and pulled me into the kitchen. We ran, her bare feet slipping on the floor, my candy cane still clutched in my hand. She yanked open the pantry door.
Inside, quick!
We squeezed in together, surrounded by cereal boxes and flour jars. She shut the door and pressed her hand over her mouth, whispering,
Don't make a sound.
Through the slats, I saw him stalking through the kitchen.
I know you're hiding. Santa sees everything.
Mom was trembling, but her eyes were sharp. She looked toward the back window, just a few feet away from the pantry. It was small, the kind that barely opened wide enough for a kid to slip through. As soon as the man's footsteps faded toward the basement door, Mom led me to the window. She kissed me on the forehead and whispered,
Listen to me, baby. You have to crawl out that window and run to the neighbors. Don't stop. Don't look back. Please ask them to contact the police.
No, Mommy!
I whispered, tears streaming down my face.
Come with me!
She shook her head, tears in her eyes too.
I won't fit through. Just Do what's Mommy's saying, okay?
I crawled onto the counter and pushed the window open. The cold hit my face like knives. I turned back, and that's when I saw it, the shadow moving behind her. "Mom!" The man burst from the basement door, grabbing her from behind. The knife glinted as he pulled her back, laughing.
Where are you two going? Christmas just started!
She screamed.
Run, Noah! Go!
But the man grabbed me by the collar next, trying to pull me back in too. But Mom didn't let him. She kept kicking. She clawed at his face. Blood streaked across his cheek as she ripped off a handful of hair. The man howled in rage and let go of me, turning all of his fury on her. I dropped into the snow and ran barefoot through the yard. Behind me, I heard glass shattering, furniture breaking, and my mother's voice screaming. The neighbor's house was 2 doors down. I pounded on the door. When Mr. Harris opened it, I was shaking so hard I couldn't speak.
Man, Mommy's hurt! Call the cops!
He called 911 immediately. I remember hiding under their Christmas tree while he locked the doors and turned off the lights. The sirens came minutes later, but it felt like hours. When the police got to our house, they found the front door broken and the living room trashed. The Christmas tree was on its side, ornaments shattered across the floor. The man dressed as Santa was lying unconscious near the fireplace, bleeding from his head. Mom had hit him with the heavy brass candlestick from the mantel. The officers said she fought like hell, but she didn't make it. They found her collapsed beside him, the knife still in her side. She had lost too much blood before help could arrive. The cops found a picture of me crumpled in her palm. In her last breath, all she thought of was me. It's been 20 years since that night. The cops told me later that the man had escaped from a nearby psychiatric hospital. He'd stolen the Santa costume from a donation drive hours before he broke into our home. He survived the blow to the head, but he's been in a secure facility ever since. Sometimes I wonder if he remembers what he did, but mostly I wonder if Mom knew how brave she was in that moment, how she chose to die so I could live. I can't stand Christmas music anymore. Every night before I go to bed, I ask God why he took the person who wanted to stay. Why do we lose those who care? When my dad left me and never came back, never bothered to check on Mom or his kid, God did nothing. But the only person who tried to make ends meet by devoting her life to her son suffered such a vicious end? How can life be so unfair? After Lily's mom walked out on us 2 years back, it's been just the two of us. I work 60-hour weeks at a distribution center, so hardly get any time out to spend with my daughter. So when my boss gave me a long weekend, I just threw our stuff in the car and drove 3 hours to Clearwater Beach. It was a sight to watch my little girl's face absolutely glow the second she laid eyes on the ocean. Lily spent the whole afternoon racing along the shore, chasing waves and building sandcastles that honestly look like lumpy piles of wet sand, while I sat there on our beach towel watching her. That's when this woman showed up, heavily pregnant, like she could go into labor at any minute. She had on this loose floral dress hanging over her belly, sandals, and one of those wide-brimmed hats.
She's beautiful. How old is she?
The woman smiled in this warm, motherly way. 6.
Oh, I'm having a girl too.
She rubbed her bump. I congratulated her with a polite smile. She stepped closer to Lily, who was still playing in the shallow water.
Her hair's gorgeous. So thick and shiny. And that sundress is just perfect. You're the perfect size, aren't you, sweetheart?
The perfect size. Something about the way she said it felt off. I watched her more carefully now. She had so much makeup on that I could barely imagine how her original face might look like. Something just didn't add up, so I decided to leave and told Lily to come back.
Oh, don't leave yet.
The woman said quickly, stepping between me and Lily. Before I could say anything, she walked right past and headed straight for my daughter.
Sweetheart, come here for a second. I want to tell you something.
Lily looked up, confused but curious. As she started walking toward the woman, every instinct in my body screamed at me. I moved fast, reaching Lily first. I put myself between them. Actually, we're late for dinner. Come on, Lil. The woman's smile didn't fade, but her eyes went cold.
Just 1 minute. I'm not gonna steal her.
We really need to go, I said firmly. I turned my back on her for maybe 2 seconds to grab our beach bag when I heard Lily scream. I spun around to find the woman sprinting toward the boardwalk, scooping Lily by her waist. Lily! I dropped everything and chased. For a pregnant woman, she moved like an Olympic sprinter, weaving through clusters of people, dragging Lily with her like a rag doll. My girl was crying, trying to pull away, but the woman's grip was iron. I pushed people out of the way, shouting for help, but most just stared. A few pulled out their phones to record as she headed for the parking lot. My heart stopped. If she got Lily into a car, I'd never see my daughter again. Someone stop her! The woman glanced back at me, and for a split second, our eyes met. She was smiling triumphantly. Then she turned forward again, running faster. My chest felt like it was going to explode. My vision blurred, but I kept running. She was maybe 20 feet from the parking lot entrance when a lifeguard stepped into her path. Ma'am, stop! The woman didn't stop. She tried to shove past him, but he grabbed her arm. Another lifeguard appeared from the side, blocking her escape. The woman twisted violently, hissing like a cornered animal, still clutching Lily's wrist. I reached them a second later, ripping Lily from her grip. She buried her face in my chest, sobbing. It's okay, baby. I got you. I got you. The woman struggled against the lifeguards, screaming incoherently and thrashing like she was possessed. More beach staff arrived, holding her carefully until sirens filled the air. The police showed up quick. 2 officers took the woman into custody, while a third questioned me. One officer walked over and reached for her belly. She screamed as he pulled out a knife and cut through the fabric. The dress fell down. What I saw made my stomach drop. Instead of a baby bump, she'd strapped a fake silicone bump around her waist. Underneath, her stomach was thin and wiry. Next, the officer reached for her hair and pulled off the wig. Bit by bit, they stripped her of the disguise until the real face became clear. Suddenly, a sense of urgency took over. The officers exchanged looks and made a phone call. It's him, the trafficking scout, he muttered to his partner. I felt like I was going to throw up. It wasn't some helpless pregnant lady, rather a child kidnapper named Butch, who was already in the wanted list. I couldn't speak. I just held Lily tighter, feeling her heartbeat against mine. They arrested him, took him away in handcuffs. I gave my statement, answered every question, and then carried Lily back to our hotel room. She didn't let go of me for the rest of the night. We left the next morning. Lily hasn't been the same since. She doesn't sleep well. She won't go outside unless I'm holding her hand. She wakes up crying, asking if the bad lady is coming back. I tell her no. If that lifeguard hadn't been there, if I'd been one step slower, if I'd looked away for just a little longer, she'd be gone. I think about that every single day, and I think about all the other parents out there who weren't as lucky. I don't take Lily to beaches anymore. I don't take her anywhere crowded. I keep her close, because I know now, in the worst possible way, that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like a pregnant woman with a kind smile, and sometimes they're seconds away from stealing everything you love. Norman and I had been dating for a month when he started pushing me to spend New Year's Eve at his family's farmhouse. The place was 2 hours outside of the city, buried in the woods next to a lake that looked pitch black even during the day. There were no neighbors in sight for miles. The second we pulled up, the front door swung open before we even made it to the porch, and his mom practically tackled me.
Jenny! You're even prettier in person. Get in here. We've been waiting all day.
She grabbed my hands and squeezed so hard it hurt. Inside, the place smelled of old wood mixed with something sickeningly sweet. The furniture looked ancient. Every wall had these creepy photos of people with blank faces staring straight ahead. We walked into the living room and Norman's uncle's eyes glazed over.
Jenny, you're hot.
I went stiff, but Norman laughed it off, asking me to take it easy. How could I, when his uncle couldn't stop leering all through dinner? Every single time I glanced up, he was watching me with this gross smile, licking his lips. Norman's mom was just as bad. She'd stroke my hair, squeeze my shoulders, and grab my wrist every time I so much as breathed.
Have more,
She said, dumping another pile of gray slop onto my plate.
I'm stuffed, really.
Her smile stayed frozen, but her fingers dug into my wrist.
Just one more bite, sweetie.
So, Jenny, tell us about your folks.
Norman's dad leaned across the table.
They're back in the city. My mom teaches philosophy.
Do they know you're here?
That stopped me cold. I looked at Norman, but he wouldn't meet my eyes, so I mumbled an awkward yes and went back to the food. An hour later, Norman's mom carried in a cake with "Welcome to the family" written in red frosting. Suddenly, Norman's dad got up and pulled out a little box from his pocket. He set it down in front of Norman. I felt ice in my veins when he opened it. Inside was tucked an old, tarnished ring with a black stone that looked like it swallowed light.
Norman, go ahead.
His mom giggled. Norman grabbed my hand and knelt. Jenny, will you marry me? I tried to laugh it off while my heart pounded in my chest.
Norman, it's just been a month.
I know, he said, grinning. But when you know, right?
This is insane.
Norman's mom's face changed.
Aren't you his girlfriend?
Yeah, but
So you will marry him.
maybe, but we need more time.
Time?
His mom's voice went shrill.
For what? You ate our food. You're in our home. You're a part of us now.
I came for dinner, not a wedding.
My voice cracked. Carl pushed himself up.
What an ungrateful bitch!
I got up to leave, but Norman grabbed my wrist hard. His dad stepped in close, blocking my path to the door. Carl moved to the other side while Norman's mom stood behind me.
Please. Let me go home.
I said, tears starting to spill. I tried to pull away from Norman, but his grip only kept tightening. Carl had grabbed my other arm. Between him and Norman, they started forcing me down into the chair. I struggled and wiggled, but they were too strong. Sit down! You're embarrassing me!
Stop it, please.
Norman's dad pulled the ring from the box.
Put out your hand!
No!
Carl wrenched my arm forward. Norman held my wrist still. His dad moved the ring toward my finger. I had to get away. I searched my brain for any potential exit until it clicked.
My parents have to be here.
I screamed. Norman's dad stopped. What?
My parents,
I choked out through tears.
they need to see this. That's how it's done.
Norman's mom frowned.
We don't need.
Yes! It's tradition. Please, they have to be here.
They exchanged looks. Norman's grip loosened slightly.
She's stalling.
Carl muttered.
No, I'm not, I swear. It's a union of two families, too. That's proper, isn't it? I mean, Norman deserves a grand celebration after all.
I looked at Norman, pleading with him to believe me. He looked at me, and his face softened. Fine, Norman said slowly, letting go of my wrist. I'll go get them. His dad didn't look convinced, but Norman had already grabbed the car keys and was heading towards the door.
I should give him a good luck kiss.
I mumbled, wiping my eyes and following a few steps behind. As I passed the table, I sneakily grabbed the cake fork and slipped it up my sleeve. I know you have doubts right now, but once you're in, you'll get it, Norman said at the door. I nodded, stepping closer until we were standing inches apart. I went up on my toes. He closed his eyes, waiting for the touch. Instead, I jammed the fork into his eye as hard as I could. Norman went down screaming, clutching his face as blood poured out. The car keys hit the porch with a clatter. I snatched them up and bolted. His mom started shrieking behind me. I didn't look until I dove into the car and shoved the key in. The engine turned over right as Norman's dad got to the window, hammering on the glass.
You made a mistake!
I hit the gas. Gravel sprayed everywhere as the car kicked sideways, then straightened out. In the mirror, I could see all four of them on the porch under that yellow light, just watching me tear down the driveway. I drove for over an hour before I could pull over. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Norman's blood was all over my sleeve. Every time I blinked, I saw the fork going in. I've shifted apartment and now staying with my parents. I can't go to the cops because I too stabbed Norman that night. I just hope we never cross paths again. Ryan and I had been married for exactly 4 days when we touched down in Bali for our dream honeymoon. Aro, our personal guide, was the first to greet us. He was part of the package by the resort provided to show us around. He seemed friendly at first, spoke decent English, and knew the area inside out, so we really didn't mind him. But there was something about the way he looked at me that gave me the creeps. But since Ryan was around, I really didn't think much of it. We were climbing down this track from this infamous sunset point when Aro chimed in. I have the perfect spot for you. It's an exclusive place and absolutely romantic. Not many people know it, but it has the perfect moon view. Ryan's eyes lit up. That sounds incredible. What do you think, Mia? I hesitated.
I don't know. Maybe we should stick to the main beaches?
Come on, babe, we're on our honeymoon. Let's do something adventurous. Aro nodded enthusiastically. Yes, very safe. I take many couples there. He kept explaining how quiet and exclusive that place was, like he was selling us on the idea a little too hard. But Ryan was already grabbing his camera, and I didn't want to be a prude, so I agreed. We followed Aro down a narrow path that led away from the resort, and the other tourists sprawled on the main beach. The farther we walked, the quieter everything got. We came to a point where everything was dead quiet except for the waves crashing and our footsteps on rocky ground. Aro was already moving into the cave, motioning for us to follow. Come, very beautiful inside. Trust me. I didn't trust him, but Ryan was already stepping inside, and I couldn't just leave him behind.
How much further?
Very close, just a little more. The path got narrower. Ryan was ahead of me, filming everything on his phone. I kept my eyes on Aro's back, watching how he kept checking over his shoulder to make sure we were still following. My stomach twisted when the cave entrance came in sight. It reeked of salt and something rotting, like something had died in there and nobody had ever bothered to remove it. The smell hit me so hard I actually gagged. The deeper we went, the darker it got. The only light came from our phones, throwing long shadows on the damp stone walls.
This is far enough. I can't even see the sky. Forget about the moon, Ryan, seriously. Let's go.
Before I could turn around, I heard metal scraping against stone. I spun just in time to see Aro swinging a flashlight at Ryan's head. The crack was brutal. Ryan dropped like a stone, his phone clattering across the wet ground. I screamed as Aro lunged at me. He grabbed my wrist and yanked me toward him. His breath was hot and sour in my face. His grip was bruising as he slammed my back on the cave wall and tried to take advantage of me. You're very pretty, he chuckled. By now, the shock had worn off. I'd trained in mixed martial arts for 8 years, started when I was 20, kept it up even when people told me it was pointless. Ryan used to joke that I could probably kick his ass if I wanted to. He wasn't joking. I headbutted Aro, twisted his wrist, and shoulder threw him on the ground hard. His evil smile rubbed off from his face. Instead, he looked shocked and scared. He tried to get up, but I didn't give him time. I started showering him with kicks in the stomach. I felt his ribcage crunch under the impact. Blood came out of his mouth. He stumbled back, clutching his chest, begging me to stop. I didn't stop. I stomped down on his knee with everything I had. The bone popped, and Oro screamed in agonizing pain. His leg was twisted at an angle, revealing a pretty gory sight. I stood there, shaking with blood all over my hands, and my dress ripped. Then Ryan groaned. Mia? I ran to him. Blood was streaming down the side of his face. His eyes were unfocused. I got him on his feet and threw his arm over my shoulders. He could barely walk. His weight slowed me down with each step, but I wasn't stopping. We staggered out of the cave and back down the path. My legs felt like jelly, my chest burned, but I kept dragging him forward. Ryan mumbled the whole way, his head heavy against my shoulder. The second we hit the main beach, I screamed for help. Security came running. They took Ryan from me and called for medical. I collapsed next to him, gasping, trying to explain what happened. 2 security guards ran toward the cave. The others stayed with us, asking questions I could barely answer. Police found Oro in the cave. He was unconscious with broken bones and serious injuries. They arrested him right there. Turns out he had a history of harassing women, but since the resort owner was his cousin, they looked the other way. The resort gave us a full refund and apologized constantly, even offered another honeymoon on them. We turned him down and flew home the next day. People keep asking us how the honeymoon was. We tell them it was great. We show them a couple of beach photos from the first day, smile, and change the subject. We don't talk about the cave or Oro, but sometimes, late at night, Ryan touches the scar on his head and asks me what happened after he got hit. I tell him the truth about how I fought back. He's grateful that I could defend myself and sorry that he ignored a woman's instincts. Now he knows that it never lies, and neither do her fists. That Saturday evening, my folks were out to visit my grandma, so I had the whole house to myself. I figured it was the perfect time to finally watch The Conjuring without Mom freaking out about the psychological impact on a 15-year-old. I made this huge bowl of popcorn, crashed on the couch, and got about 30 minutes in when someone knocked on the door. When I looked through the peephole, a girl was standing on my porch wearing a green Girl Scout sash and pigtails. She had this huge smile that was way too big for her face. Girl Scouts sold cookies all the time. It wasn't meant to be anything special, but some just didn't fit right in. Girl Scouts are usually like 10 years old, but this girl looked at least 20. She had full makeup on, mascara and lipstick, but was dressed like a little kid. I almost didn't open the door. My gut told me not to, but then I thought I was being paranoid from watching too many horror movies. Plus, she was just selling cookies. What's the worst that could happen? I opened the door.
Hi! We're raising money for the troops. Wanna buy some cookies?
Up close, she looked even weirder. Her makeup was caked on, covering what looked like acne scars. The pigtails were messy as if she had tied them in a hurry, and her eyes didn't match her smile. Sure, I said. How much?
$5 a box.
She held up Thin Mints, and her smile got wider.
You're cute. You know that?
My heartbeat picked up. Thanks, I said, reaching for my wallet. I'll just take 1 box. She leaned closer, and I could smell her perfume. It was heavy and sweet, that kind that sticks in your throat.
You know, I've got more varieties in my van, if you want to pick your favorite.
Everything in my head was telling me to say no and close the door, but I was 15 and stupid, and some part of me was flattered that an older girl was paying attention to me. Yeah, let me check them out. She giggled, turned, and walked toward the curb, where a white van was sitting with its engine running. As we got closer, I noticed that instead of the windows, the van had solid white panels in the back.
They're right here,
the girl said, reaching for the side door. She slid the door open. Before I even figured out what I was looking at, hands shot out of the dark and grabbed me. One yanked my arm, another grabbed my shirt, and suddenly I was being pulled inside. I tried to scream, but a hand clamped over my mouth. My feet barely touched the ground before they shoved me all the way in. The doors slammed shut, and the van lurched forward. Inside, one of them pinned me down while the other went through my pockets. They took my phone first, then my wallet. I was wearing my new Jordans my dad just bought me. One of them yanked those off too, laughing.
The new edition,
he whistled.
Please,
I sobbed, hating how scared I sounded.
Please just let me go. I won't tell anyone.
The girl was sitting in the passenger seat. She smiled as she pulled off the pigtails, and without them, she looked at least 10 years older, harder, and meaner.
Stupid, horny teenagers,
she said, lighting a cigarette. She took a drag, then turned around and pressed the lit end against my arm. I screamed. That's when the guy started hitting me in the gut, face, and ribs. They weren't trying to knock me out. They just wanted to hurt me. I curled up trying to protect myself, but there wasn't enough room. Every time I moved, another punch landed. I tasted blood. My nose was bleeding, dripping onto the van floor. One punch caught me in the eye, and I saw stars. Another hit my ribs, and I heard something crack. The pain was so bad I couldn't breathe. They were laughing, making jokes about how I was crying and how easy it was. I don't know how long it lasted. Everything blurred together into pain and the smell of cigarette smoke and beer. After a few hours, the van stopped. One of them opened the door, and they threw me out onto the street. I landed hard, scraping my hands and knees on the pavement.
Stay down,
one said.
Don't look up, and if you go to the cops, we know where you live.
The van peeled away while I lay there on the street. My whole body hurt. My face felt swollen, and blood dripping from my nose onto the sidewalk. When I finally sat up, I had no idea where I was. It was some neighborhood I'd never seen. A woman came out of one of the houses with her phone.
Oh my god, are you okay? I'm calling 911.
I tried to say I was fine, but when I opened my mouth, more blood came out. My ribs hurt so bad I could barely breathe. She made me sit on her porch while we waited. The paramedics said I needed the hospital. I called my parents. My mom cried when she saw my face. My dad looked like he wanted to kill someone. Cops came and took a statement, but I couldn't tell them much except that the van was white. I didn't see the plate, and there were at least 2 of them with the fake scout girl. I spent 2 days in the hospital. I had 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, and a broken nose. The bruises took weeks to heal, but the physical stuff wasn't the worst part. The worst part was living afterward. Every time someone knocks on the door, I freeze. Every white van I see makes my heart race. I have nightmares about being in that van, about those fists in the dark. My therapist says it's PTSD. She's teaching me ways to feel safe again. But some nights, I still wake up sweating, convinced I can smell smoke and beer. The cops never caught them. As far as I know, they're still out there, knocking on doors, looking for stupid, horny teenagers to follow a stranger to their van. This happened last year, a few days before Christmas. My wife, Julia, and I had to take a last-minute trip to the mall to buy decors and dinner supplies with our son, Danny. The mall was getting crowded each second. I told Danny to keep by my side, but a few seconds later, when I looked down, my son was nowhere to be found. We tore through every store, screaming his name. Dread coiled in my gut. Julia started crying. We were talking to the mall security to help us find Danny when we heard an announcement from their office. "Attention shoppers, one of our security personnel has been found dead in the men's restroom. Please remain calm and stay inside the building." Suddenly, one security personnel showed us footage of another security guy leading Danny by the hand toward the back hallways. "There! That's our son! Call your security guy!" I watched the guard's face turn pale. He said the man in the footage was not their coworker. The uniform he's wearing actually belonged to the dead guy found in the bathroom. Julia broke down crying on the floor. My son's helpless, innocent face flashed right in front of my eyes. "The cops will be here any minute, sir." But I didn't wait. I ran.
Sir, wait! He might have a weapon!
I didn't care. That was my Danny back there. I pushed through the employees-only door and into a narrow concrete hallway. Spotlights were strung along the ceiling, half burnt out, throwing jumpy shadows that moved when I did. I ran past storage rooms full of boxes, and I could hear Danny screaming.
Dad! Dad!
I followed his voice and burst through the door into a big storage room. The man was holding Danny off the ground. His one arm was locked around his chest, the other pointed a knife at him. Danny's little feet kicked weakly. His face was red from crying.
Stay back!
He warned.
Let him go!
I could barely get the words out.
He's only 6. Please! I don't care. He's my key to get out of this mall without any trouble from the cops.
Danny was crying, shaking really badly. His little hands were stretched towards me. I knew my one wrong move could cost my son's life, so I had to be smart. I raised my arms up in surrender and said, "Look, you want to get out of here, right? I'll help you. Just let him go and hold me hostage. I promise I'll cooperate." The man scratched his head with the knife, then looked at Danny and back at me.
Is this some trick you're trying to play? Because if so, I'll shoot.
No! Take me, let him go. Look, the cops are coming. You've got to listen to me, now. My words convinced him, and he let Danny go. He ran towards me with little steps, and I hugged him. He was crying, thinking the man could still hurt him, but I calmed him down and told him to go back to Mom. Told him that I'll be all right. But just then, I heard running footsteps coming our way. The man grabbed me by the neck and placed the knife on my forehead. The cops burst through the door. Danny was still there, calling out for me, crying. One of the cops took him into his lap, while 3 others told the man to let me go. But the man threatened them, saying if anyone tries to stop him, he'd shoot me. I told the officers to first get my kid out of there because I'm all right. When we all walked back to the mall, everyone watched me and the guy with fear and suspense in their eyes. The cops were negotiating, but the man who had been a runaway convict wasn't falling for any of their words. My wife screamed from the crowd, seeing me. I was a little relieved to find Danny back with Julia, but I knew it broke her. She got her son back, but put her husband in danger instead. It was like her life traded fear with fear. The convict told me to head for the exit without doing anything foolish.
One mistake, and I'll blow off his head!
I nodded and started walking away slowly. The cops had their guns at him, but couldn't do anything because my life was hanging by a thread. We were about to get inside the elevator when I noticed this big metal Christmas star hanging right inside the elevator. An idea clicked in my mind. The man hit me on the head with the knife and shouted,
"Get in! You're coming with me, remember?"
I got in, but just before the elevator door closed, I noticed the man laughing at the cops. He thought he won. His pride distracted him for a few seconds, and that's when I snatched the star from the ceiling and stabbed him in the right eye with its pointy peak. He screamed in pain, and the knife fell out of his hand. The cops swarmed in and pinned him down to the ground. It happened so fast and quickly that everyone stayed silent for minutes. Finally, I was reunited with my family. Danny came running at me. While hugging me, the poor kid kept apologizing.
"I'm sorry, Daddy. I shouldn't have left you."
"Shh, don't say that. You're safe. That's all that matters."
"Were you scared?"
"Terrified. But seeing you, I'd give my whole life for you."
"Will you always protect me?"
"Always. I promise." That day, I could have lied to Danny, telling him how I don't scare easy or how big of a hero I am. But if you ask me, I think it's better to tell our kids the truth. It's better to let them know that parents are human too, and they can make mistakes as well. This teaches your kid to respect your decisions. Miles and I had this TikTok account where we posted dumb pranks and stupid challenges. It wasn't anything insane, just stuff that got us laughs, a few thousand followers, and occasionally brand deals. But recently, the views had started tanking. We were stuck at 23K, and no matter what we did, the algorithm didn't care. The comments were getting brutal too. Then, one night, Miles texted me, saying he had an idea that was going to break the internet. The next day, he showed up at my place, grinning like he just solved world hunger.
Dude, listen, there's this new trend called #MidnightHide. It's kinda risky, but everyone who's done it blew up.
I frowned. What even is that? He explained that we'd have to sneak into some random house at night, hide till morning, film everything, and post it. It sounded stupid and dangerous, but we were 16, and when you're 16 and chasing views, stupid feels like an adventure too. We picked this house at the end of our street. It's been dark for weeks, with newspapers piling up on the porch. We figured the owner was away. We got in through a basement window at around midnight. The house was quiet and smelled like a hospital.
This is perfect.
Miles whispered, already filming.
We're gonna blow up.
We went upstairs. The kitchen had old takeout containers everywhere. The dishes were stacked in the sink. We started messing around for the camera, ate food from the fridge, and laughed about it. Miles found expensive cologne in the bathroom and sprayed himself, joking about smelling rich for once. Our followers were eating it up. The comments kept coming in. People were saying we were crazy, that we had guts. Then, one comment made us stop. Someone commented about the pile of sheets laying behind us, saying they had weird stains, much like blood. Miles turned his camera toward the living room corner, and true enough, a pile of white sheets was crumpled by the wall. He got closer with his flashlight. The stains were dark red and spread all over.
Dude,
Miles whispered.
That's actual blood.
My stomach dropped.
We gotta leave, right now.
I gulped, but before we could move, we heard a key in the front door as it creaked open. Somebody was home. We froze, listening to the heavy footsteps coming upstairs. Miles grabbed my arm and pointed at the bedroom. I dove into the closet, while Miles hid under the bed. Through the crack in the closet door, I watched some guy walk in. He was maybe 40 and average looking. He had tattered jeans and a polo on. Nothing about him screamed dangerous, and somehow that made it worse. He went to the corner and pulled back the sheets. What I saw nearly made me scream. It was the corpse of some guy with a gunshot wound to the head. The corpse's eyes were wide open and held terror. The wound was still leaking, but the blood was thick. I put my hand over my mouth. My heart was pounding. We'd broken into a murderer's house, and he was just standing a couple feet away. I panted as the guy grabbed the body by the arms and started dragging it. He was nearly out of the door when, suddenly, he stopped and sniffed the air. He started pacing the room in circles.
I know you're somewhere here, bud.
He chuckled.
I can smell ya. Come out now. I promise I'll make it quick.
He pulled out a gun from under his hoodie. Then he bent down and looked under the bed.
Well, hello there.
Miles got out and raised his arms, begging the guy.
I won't tell anyone. I promise. We didn't.
The gunshot was so loud it hurt. I watched Miles falling dead to the floor. His eyes were still open, blood pooling under his head. I just watched my best friend since the 3rd grade getting murdered. I bit down on my sleeve so hard I tasted blood. I was trying not to scream, breathe, or do anything and get caught. The guy dragged Miles toward the hall, leaving blood smeared on the floor. I thought maybe he'd leave, take both bodies, and go. But he stopped in the doorway one more time.
Wait a minute. Did he say we?
He muttered. He turned back and started checking everywhere. Behind the door, the dresser. He was getting closer to the closet. His hand touched the closet door, and he started opening it. I didn't think. I pushed out hard, slamming the door into his face. He stumbled, and I bolted. He shouted at me, then fired twice. The bullets hit the wall, missing my head. I stormed down the stairs, hit the front door, and ran for my life. I didn't stop till I was 3 blocks away. I couldn't breathe. My legs were shaking. Somehow, I called 911. The cops found 2 bodies right where I'd seen them. Shockingly, the first one was the actual owner of that house, David Matthew, who had been missing for 2 weeks. And then there was Miles still lying limp in the doorway, holding his phone, which had recorded everything, including his death. The killer got out the back while I was running. They caught him 3 days later at his mom's house, packing to leave the state. He was David Matthews' business partner. They had some feud over money, and the guy killed him. David was shot dead that same day, in the morning, and later hidden under the piles of bed sheets until his killer figured out how to get rid of it. We walked right into it. Miles's funeral was last week. His mom wouldn't look at me. She knows it wasn't my idea to do the challenge, but I surely was a partner in crime. I deleted TikTok, but I still see Miles every time I close my eyes and see his arm going limp. I still hear that gunshot. The comments on that final video before the cops took it down were the worst. People were saying it was fake. We staged it for views. They didn't believe it was real, even with Miles bleeding out on camera. That's what we wanted, though, right? To go viral and get views. We got it, at the cost of Miles's life. It happened on a Wednesday in October. Mark, my husband, manages Tony's Pizza downtown and was working late doing inventory that evening. My 7-year-old Liam and I were having dinner when the doorbell rang. I glanced at the clock. It was 7:30. When I looked through the peephole, Dylan, one of Mark's recent recruits, was standing there with a pizza box. I'd met him a couple of times and knew him as this quiet and polite guy who never really caused any trouble.
Hey, Dylan.
I said, opening the door.
Mark's still at work if you're looking for him.
I know, he replied with a smile that looked tight. He sent this for you guys. It's on the house. I didn't remember Mark saying anything about pizza, but it wasn't weird. Sometimes he sent leftovers home.
Oh, thanks.
I said, reaching for the box. Only Dylan didn't let go. That's when I noticed his bloodshot eyes and that faint reek of alcohol. But before I could shut the door, Dylan shoved his way inside. I stumbled back, more confused than scared.
What are you doing?
He slammed the door and threw the pizza box on the floor. Your husband fired me today, said I was stealing. My heart started pounding.
Dylan, you need to leave. Right now.
Stealing! He laughed, throwing his head back. I took $40, Sarah, because my power was getting shut off. Your dear Mark fired me over $40, called me a thief in front of everyone.
I'm sorry, but that has nothing...
He grabbed my hair and yanked me backward. I screamed as the pain shot through my scalp like fire. He slapped me across the face so hard that everything went white for a second. Quiet, witch! He hit me again, making me taste blood in my mouth. Mommy! Liam's voice rang from the kitchen doorway as he came running in.
Run, Liam! Go!
I screamed, but my baby had frozen in place. His face was white as a sheet, and he was still holding his juice box. Dylan dragged me toward the living room by my hair. I tried fighting, but he was so much bigger and stronger. He threw me against the wall, and I hit it hard. My shoulder exploded with pain. This is your fault, he kept saying. Your husband's fault. You're gonna pay. He pulled a gun from his jacket and pointed it at my face.
Dylan, please. Please don't. I have a son.
And I'd a life before your husband destroyed it. That's when Liam moved. He ran at Dylan, screaming, Leave my mommy alone! He hit Dylan's legs, kicked and punched with everything he had. Dylan stumbled, and I tried to make it to the door, but he caught himself fast. You little brat! He yelled, and pushed Liam so hard his head hit the corner of the coffee table with a crack. He rolled onto the floor and didn't move. Blood started pooling beneath his head.
Liam! Baby, please, wake up!
I screamed, crawling to him, but there was so much blood. Dylan looked down at what he'd done and panicked. I didn't mean... I just pushed him. Oh, God. He bolted out the door, leaving it wide open. With shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and called 911. The dispatcher tried calming me down, but I could barely breathe. Still, I pressed my hands against the wound on Liam's head, trying to stop the bleeding. His eyes were closed. His little body was still.
Stay with me, baby. Please stay with Mommy.
I whispered, hiccuping. The ambulance came fast. Paramedics took over while I just stood there, covered in his blood. They lifted him onto a stretcher and I climbed in beside him, holding his hand. One of them kept talking about skull fracture, brain injury, but it barely made sense. At the hospital, doctors rushed him into surgery. Mark showed up terrified, and I collapsed into his arms, telling him everything through sobs. Police came and took my statement, promised they'd find Dylan. Around midnight, the doctor came out. "Your son's in a coma. The head trauma was severe. We've done everything we can. Let's just hope for a miracle." I sat by Liam's bed for 3 days straight, holding his hand, talking to him, and begging him to come back. Mark brought food I couldn't eat, clothes I barely changed. The nurses tried to make me rest, but I couldn't leave. On the third day, the police came back. They'd found Dylan in some alley 2 towns over, passed out drunk. He was arrested, charged with assault and attempted murder. He'd go to prison a long time. I sat by Liam's bedside, his tiny hand limp in mine. A beeping of the monitors the only sign that he was still here with me. My throat ached from whispering prayers that never seemed to reach anywhere. The room smelled of antiseptic and fear. I brushed his hair off his forehead, my voice trembling.
The one who hurt you is behind bars now, baby. Please, come back to us.
For a moment, there was nothing, just silence and the hum of machines. Then, I felt it. His little fingers twitched against my palm. My heart stopped.
Liam?
I breathed. His eyelids fluttered, his chest rose shakily, and then those familiar eyes met mine. "Mommy?" he whispered, his voice small and broken. "Are you safe now?" I didn't realize I was crying until my tears fell onto his hand. I nodded furiously, choking out a laugh that was a half sob.
Yes, sweetheart, I'm safe. You saved me.
I gathered him into my arms, careful of the IV lines, and buried my face in his hair. He smelled like home, like everything good that I thought I'd lost.
You're my little hero.
I whispered, holding him tighter as his heartbeat pressed against my chest. The world outside could keep spinning, but in that moment, all I could feel was his warmth, his life, his courage. My little boy was awake, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I believed we'd both be okay. Working the late shift at Hooters isn't glamorous. Most nights were routine, fryer sizzling, orders coming in, and the hum of conversation and clattering dishes. Nothing ever disturbed me until that night. It was around 11:50 p.m. I was wiping down the grill, trying to finish my side prep, when headlights bounced off the windows. A delivery truck pulled up silently outside the back door, not the usual branded delivery van. No one inside spoke as the driver jumped out, carrying 3 unmarked cardboard boxes. They were labeled in black Sharpie, premium cuts. The driver handed a clipboard to Carl, the branch manager. He looked normal enough on paper, mid-30s, slicked back hair, a permanent smirk, but something about his eyes always made me uneasy. That night, he barely glanced at the receipt, shoved it into his pocket, and muttered, "Leave him alone. Just freezer stock, Louise." I nodded, but something in the pit of my stomach didn't sit right. The boxes were heavy, the tape was peeling, and they smelled weird. Carl wheeled them inside like they were nothing and slammed the door shut behind him. The shift ended. I clocked out, grabbed my keys, and headed for my car. But as I reached the alley outside the back, I realized I'd left my phone on the prep table. Not a big deal. I figured I'd just grab it and leave. I went back in, and this time I noticed the freezer humming louder than usual. I froze. The door, which Carl had slammed shut, was now slightly ajar. I had no reason to open it. He specifically asked me to leave the boxes alone, but something gnawed at me. Curiosity? A gut instinct? I pulled the door fully open. Cold air hit my face, fogging the glasses I wasn't wearing. I stepped inside, eyes adjusting to the dim freezer light. I saw one of the boxes, opened. I swear my heart stopped. Vacuum-sealed bags of raw meat lay spilling out, stacked unevenly. At first, I thought maybe a box had torn in transport, but something was wrong. The cuts were uneven and jagged. The color was off, not fresh red, but a sickly brown pink that made my stomach churn. In addition to the unsettling color, there was a tattoo. It was faint, almost invisible beneath the packaging, but unmistakable. A small crescent moon tattoo on a wrist. My blood ran cold. That tattoo, I knew it. One of our missing Hooters waitresses, Jenna, had that exact tattoo. I stumbled back, fumbling for my phone, and shaking, I dialed 911.
Hello? There's human meat in the freezer at Hooters. You need to send someone. Please, hurry.
The dispatcher asked questions I barely heard. I was hyper-aware of every sound, the hum of the freezer, the empty street, and my own breathing. I was about to give them the address when a voice stopped me.
You don't understand, Louise.
I spun around. Carl was standing there, knife glinting in the alley light. His smirk was gone. His eyes were hard and dark. You're seeing things that aren't there.
I saw it,
I said, my voice shaking.
The tattoo. It's her. There's human...
Carl stepped closer, raising the knife slightly.
You misheard, or you misunderstood. Nothing here is what you think it is.
I backed up instinctively, bumping into the dumpster. My adrenaline spiked. I pressed the phone against my ear and whispered into it.
He's here. He's got a knife.
The dispatcher told me to stay calm as the cops were on their way. Carl lunged, just a quick swipe, more of a threat than an attack. I dodged and ran toward the street, shouting,
Help! Somebody help me!
I hid behind this heap of trash bags waiting for the cops. When they finally arrived, they found Carl inside. He was putting those meat boxes in a large bag, probably planning to run away. They caught him quickly. He didn't resist, but even as they cuffed him, I saw the panic in his eyes turn to something colder, more calculated. They searched the freezer and found more boxes. They ripped them open carefully, gloved hands moving like surgeons. Every box contained vacuum-sealed human remains. I couldn't look directly at most of them, but the tattoos were unmistakable. Jenna, another missing cook, and even a manager from a different branch. Carl tried to explain it away. He said he handled premium cuts for specialty events, and there was a misunderstanding. But the officers weren't buying it. Evidence, DNA, fingerprints, it all pointed to him. I watched him being let out, still trying to charm, still trying to argue, and I realized something that would stay with me forever. He didn't see these people as people, just inventory, premium cuts. That was what he called them. I never returned to that Hooters. I couldn't. I can't. They offered me counseling and relocation. I turned them down. I don't know where I would go if I felt safe again. I quit restaurant work entirely. Sometimes late at night, I still wake up with the cold fear pressing on me. The memory of the tattoo, the way he smirked when he held the knife. It's like a shadow I can't shake. I walk past Hooters on the highway occasionally. The building's lights hum in that familiar orange glow, and I get that same feeling in my gut, like someone's watching me, like those boxes are still there, waiting for the next shift, the next person who thinks they're safe. Because I'm not just scared of men like Carl, I'm also terrified of those who ordered his premium cuts. I was working overnight shift at the hospital that 2 in New Year's Eve. I needed the money, honestly. The blizzard started around 11:30 and accelerated to the point where you can't see 5 feet in front of you. I was watching IMR Scary Tales on YouTube when I heard someone slam against the front door. I buzzed him in, and he basically fell through the entrance, soaked in blood. He was breathing hard, and his eyes kept darting around. I hit a deer. My car went off the road. It's stuck in a ditch about a mile back. Please, help. I went into from watching scary stories to being in one. Are you hurt? Is this your blood? No, it's the deer's. Thing came out of nowhere. His teeth were clattering. I pushed up the heat, grabbed some gauze, and started clearing the blood off. The guy was unshaven and had tattoos creeping up his neck. Naturally, I was a bit alarmed, so I squinted closer, and that's when I noticed the consistency of the blood. It was too thick and dark. My uncle hunts, so I've seen deer blood plenty of times. I could swear it wasn't it. Where exactly did you crash? I probed. What? Your car. You said it went off the road. Yeah, Route 26, about a mile back. I walked here. I'd been watching the parking lot window for hours and hadn't seen any headlights pull in. His hands wouldn't stop shaking, but his eyes were moving around the room, taking in the door, the window, and the phone on the wall. Is anyone else working tonight? That question made my stomach drop. The overnight doctor's in his office. 2 other nurses are doing rounds. I lied, watching his jaw tighten. All right. Something about the way he said that made me uncomfortable. He stood up suddenly. Can I use your bathroom? Sure, down the hall, second door on the left. The second he walked out, I locked the exam room door from the inside. My hands were shaking when I pulled out my phone, but it had lost signal. The blizzard must have knocked out the tower. I tried the landline on the wall. It was dead as well. The storm had taken out everything. I heard his footsteps in the hallway, but he wasn't going toward the bathroom. He was going the opposite direction, toward the supply room where we had the back exit. He was checking the layout. I stayed quiet and pressed myself against the wall. Through the gap under the door, I could see his shadow stop outside the exam room. He tried the handle twice. I know you're in there. Open the door, he asked, but I didn't move. My heart started pounding. Look, it wasn't a deer, okay? She was hitchhiking, and I just wanted to feel less alone on New Year's Eve. Is that too much to ask? I tried to kiss her, a simple kiss, but she slapped me and called me a freak. After that, I just couldn't let her walk alive, you know? I felt sick. I mean, she probably slept with 1,000 random dudes, and now calling me a creep. I tell you, girls these days are impossible. I couldn't believe my ears. I let a madman in who killed someone for no reason. I told him to back off, as I have already called the cops, but he kept laughing, saying I was lying. I knew the door won't hold long if he attempted to get in, but shockingly, he did nothing like that. He calmly sat down right outside the door and continued talking to me. You know, people like her, they bring it on themselves. I offered her company, kindness. It's New Year's Eve. Everyone hates being alone on the holidays. But she acted like I was garbage. He chuckled softly. She hit me, spit on me, called me a creep after everything I did. He shifted, leaning his back fully against the door. I could feel the pressure through the metal. They think they can treat men however they want, and nothing'll happen. So yeah, I handled it, and I'd do it again. I pressed a hand over my mouth. I'm going back for her after I warm up, he continued casually. Storm's perfect for covering tracks. I'll get her off the road, bury her deep. Snow will hide the fresh dirt. Nobody'll find her till spring, if even then. I felt dizzy. The blizzard outside roared, but his voice was loud and clear. You seem like a smart guy, he murmured. You're not gonna tell anyone I came here tonight, right? He didn't wait for my answer. Good, because if you did... He laughed under his breath. Well, let's not think about that. I even left you something, a gift, right by your door. His boots scraped against the floor as he stood up. He didn't try the handle again. He didn't want to bang or shout. He just walked away, humming softly as he headed down the hallway. I waited until I couldn't hear his footsteps anymore. Maybe a full minute, maybe 5. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the keys as I opened the exam room door. The hallway was empty. I sprinted to the main entrance and locked it with trembling fingers. Only then did I notice something on the floor by the exam room. Something small, glinting in the dim light. A shine of metal in the dark. I swallowed, turned on my phone flashlight, and crouched. It wasn't metal. It was a human ear that belonged to a woman. Small, pale, and frozen stiff. A silver stud still pierced through it. I nearly fell over. He'd had it in his pocket the whole time. He'd been inches from me while carrying a piece of her. I locked every door and window that night. I sat with my back against the wall until daylight finally broke through the parking lot windows. Since that night, I check the news every morning. Local, state, national, hoping they find a body. I don't have the guts to go to the cops because I know he's watching me. I get that feeling every night. I just hope sharing the story here might help me sleep. I hadn't seen Maddie in almost 3 years when she texted me asking we meet up. We'd been tight in high school until life happened. She suggested Chuck E. Cheese of all places, said it'd be nostalgic. I showed up first and snagged a booth near the back. Maddie walked in maybe 10 minutes later, looking like she'd stepped off a runway with this massive diamond on her finger that kept catching the light every time she moved her hands. We ordered pizza and started catching up, but I noticed pretty quick that the conversation kept looping back to Ricky, her fiancé.
Ricky owns 3 car dealerships. We're exchanging vows in June. We're exchanging vows in June.
She said, toying with the ring.
That's amazing. You must be over the moon. Over the moon? I'm set for life, Vi. Ricky's loaded and loves spoiling me.
Something about how she said it rubbed me the wrong way.
But are you actually in love with him?
I asked. Maddie's smile slipped for just a second.
Of course I am.
Before I could push back on that, this employee walked past us carrying a tray piled with dirty dishes. Maddie's eyes tracked him, then widened.
Jesus. Is that you, Nathan?
She called loud enough to make heads turn at tables. The guy stopped walking. I saw his face and immediately remembered him as Nathan, her boyfriend of 2 years during high school, whom Maddie had dumped right around graduation. Hey, Maddie. Nathan smiled softly.
Nice seeing you after so long at Chuck E. Cheese.
It pays the bills. He shrugged.
Of course it does. But what happened to all those startup ideas and yacht dreams?
My mom got sick, Nathan replied. I had to stay home and take care of her.
Oh, how noble.
Maddie taunted, then showed him her huge diamond engagement ring.
See this? This is what my life looks like now. I'm marrying Ricky Crawford. You've probably heard of him? Crawford Auto Group? Maddie, stop.
I tried cutting in, feeling embarrassed for both of them.
You know what's the difference between you and Ricky, Nathan? He's a winner while you're still here wiping down tables.
Nathan just looked at her for a second, then just nodded once and walked away.
Oh, God, that felt good.
Maddie said, settling back in the booth.
I can't believe I wasted 2 whole years on that loser. That was cool.
I replied flatly.
Oh, come on, Vi. I'm just being honest.
Before I was about to tell her exactly what I thought of her honesty, the front door slammed open, and 2 guys in ski masks came rushing in, waving guns. Everyone started screaming immediately. Everyone get down! One of them fired a shot into the ceiling. and suddenly the whole place went dead quiet, except for some sobbing kids. Maddie grabbed my arm as one of the gunmen went behind the counter and forced the manager to empty out the register. The other one started making his way between the tables, demanding wallets, phones, and jewelry. When he got to our table, he pointed the gun straight at Maddie.
The ring! Give it here!
Maddie's other hand flew up to cover it.
No, it's mine. My fiance gave me this.
The guy grabbed her by the hair and yanked her head back hard. Maddie screamed, but he shut her up with a hard slap across the face. She fell sideways in the booth.
Stop!
Nathan shouted as he approached us with his hands raised.
Leave her alone. Just take the money and get out.
Nathan, don't.
Back off, man. I'll shoot.
The gunman swung the weapon toward him.
She's scared,
Nathan said, still coming closer.
Just let her keep the ring. It doesn't mean anything to you anyway. You kidding? It's worth thousands. Get back.
Nathan looked at Maddie, who was sobbing, still holding her face where she'd been hit. Then back at the gunman.
Take this instead. Just leave her alone,
Nathan said, pulling off his watch. It wasn't anything special, probably worth about $50. The gunman actually laughed at that.
That's a piece of junk. You, girl, give me the ring.
He reached for Maddie again, but Nathan lunged forward, grabbing at the guy's arm. They started struggling, the gun waving around between them. Other people were screaming now, running for the exits. The second gunman was shouting something I couldn't make out over all the chaos. Suddenly, the gun went off. Nathan stumbled backward. His hand went to his chest. Blood started spreading across his shirt.
Nathan!
Maddie screamed. He went down. The gunman took off running. I dropped to my knees beside Nathan and pressed my hands against the wound, even though I could already tell it was bad.
Someone call 911!
I shouted. Nathan's eyes found Maddie. She was on the floor next to him now, sobbing, her hands hovering over him like she wanted to help, but had no idea what to do.
I'm sorry,
Nathan whispered. His breathing was getting shallow.
I'm sorry I couldn't.
Nathan choked before his eyes closed. The paramedics showed up maybe 3 minutes later, but there was nothing anyone could do. They pronounced him dead right there on the Chuck E. Cheese floor, surrounded by arcade games and birthday decorations. The cops took statements from everyone. They caught the gunman a couple of hours later, trying to cross state lines. Maddie sat in the back of the ambulance, with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, just staring at nothing. I sat down next to her, and we didn't talk for a long time. Then, Maddie completely broke down.
I'm awful, Vi.
She looked down at her engagement ring, that massive diamond Nathan had died trying to protect. Slowly, she pulled it off her finger and just stared at it.
I lost a diamond while I was chasing gold.
She choked out. Maddie never married Ricky. She called off the engagement 2 days after Nathan's funeral. She said she couldn't marry someone she didn't actually love, not after seeing what real love looked like. She visits Nathan's grave every week now, but none of that can bring him back. My mom's a nurse, so she works a lot of night shifts, and I'm used to being home alone by myself. It never really bothered me. The house felt safe. We had a good neighborhood, solid locks, and streetlights that actually worked. Lately, though, her boyfriend Steven had been staying over sometimes. He worked at the same hospital, and Mom said it was nice having another adult around when she worked late. He seemed fine. That night was supposed to be like any other. I was doing homework around 9:30 when someone knocked on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw Steven standing there in his work scrubs, looking tired. I opened the door but kept the chain lock on.
Hey, Steven. Mom's at work.
I know, he said, sounding apologetic. Sorry to bother you. I left my backpack here yesterday. My meds are in it, and I really need them. He did look pale, and I remember seeing his backpack on the living room chair earlier.
Okay, hold on.
I unlatched the chain and let him in. He went straight for the living room, muttering thanks. Something about the way he moved made me uneasy. so I grabbed my phone and called Mom while walking toward the kitchen. She answered on the second ring.
Hey, sweetie. Everything okay?
Steven's here picking up his backpack. He said he needs his medication.
Maya,
Mom sounded panicked.
lock yourself in your room right now. We broke up this afternoon. He's sick in the head. I told him not to come to the house.
My blood ran cold. I turned around and Steven was standing in the doorway. Instead of his backpack, he was holding Mom's handgun. "Hang up the phone, Maya," he hissed, shaking the gun in his hand.
Maya, what's happening?
Mom was screaming through the phone. I ended the call with shaking hands. Steven stepped closer, and I backed up against the counter. "You know what your mother told me today? She said I'm sick and I need help, so I'll show her exactly how sick I am." His smile was ugly.
Steve,
"Get on your knees," he said.
what?
"I won't say it twice. Get on your knees." I obeyed. He pressed the barrel against my forehead, making me shiver. I could see his finger on the trigger.
Please don't kill me.
I sobbed, squeezing my eyes shut. "You know, Maya," he murmured, crouching down to my level, "I think I'd rather have you than your stuck-up mother. It's a shame I gotta kill you now." My mind went into overdrive. If I didn't do something right away, he'd kill me. I searched my brain for anything that'd help me escape. Then it struck me. I nodded hurriedly, letting real tears stream down my face.
You're right.
I choked out.
My mom, she's awful. She doesn't see how good you are.
Steven's expression shifted. "What?"
She never appreciated you. She's always working and leaves me alone. She's selfish. She wouldn't take care of me the way you would.
My voice cracked, but I kept going.
I hate her, Steven.
His grip on the gun loosened slightly. He was listening.
I hate living like this.
I looked up at him, forcing myself to meet his eyes.
You're the only one who's ever really been here for me.
His shoulders relaxed slightly. "Do you really mean that?"
Of course I do.
I reached out slowly, putting my hand on his arm.
I want to be with you. Please.
Steven lowered the gun. His eyes were still bloodshot, but now they were slightly soft. He cupped my face with one hand, the other still holding the gun at his side. "I knew it," he whispered. "I knew you were different." He pulled me into a hug and I felt the cold metal of the gun pressing against my ribs. Every muscle in my body screamed to run, but I hugged him back. "We could leave tonight, start fresh," he said into my hair. My heart was pounding so fast I thought he'd heard it.
Okay, but I need to grab some things first. IDs, clothes, my phone charger, stuff I'll need.
Steven pulled back, studying my face. For a horrible moment, I thought he saw through it. Then he smiled. "All right, but I'm coming with you."
Of course.
I forced a smile. We walked down the hallway together. Steven kept the gun in his hand. His other hand gripped my shoulder. Inside my bedroom, I started opening drawers with shaking hands, grabbed my stuff, and shoved it in my bag. Steven stood in the doorway, watching my every move. "Don't take too long," he said. I nodded. My vision was starting to blur. The room felt like it was spinning. I could feel sweat dripping down my back. Then I saw my bathroom door.
I need to use the bathroom real quick. Before we go, it's a long drive, right?
Steven's eyes narrowed. "Make it quick." I walked toward the bathroom, legs trembling. My hand found the doorknob. "Leave the door open," he said. I froze.
Steven, please, I'm embarrassed.
He stared at me for a long moment, then sighed. "You've got 2 minutes." I stepped inside and carefully pushed the door shut. The lock clicked so quietly I barely heard it myself. Then I pulled out my phone and called Mom.
Mom!
I whispered, crouching in the bathtub.
He has your gun. He wants to take me away. He's in my room right now. I already called the police.
hang in there. We're coming.
she said, her voice tight with panic. Maya, you about done in there? He was right outside the door. I didn't answer. Maya! The doorknob rattled violently. Open this door! I pressed myself against the wall, phone still at my ear. I heard sirens in the distance. They were faint, but getting louder by the second. Steven heard them too. You called the cops? He yelled. Open the door, you liar! I'll kill you! He was kicking the door. I could see the wood cracking near the lock. It nearly brought down the door, but the cops got in time. The kicking stopped. Steven's footsteps ran back. There was more shouting. I could hear furniture crash before silence took over.
Maya?
Mom whispered.
It's okay, sweetie. You can open the door.
I unlocked it and fell into her arms. She was crying, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. The police had caught Steven trying to run out back. He was on the ground, handcuffed and screaming. When he saw me, his face contorted with rage. I'll find you, Maya. When I get out, I'm coming for both of you. They dragged him away, charged him with breaking and entering, unlawful possession of a firearm, attempted kidnapping, and terroristic threats. We moved to a different town that summer. Mom got a new house, and I got into a new school. We didn't tell anyone our address. My mom got a concealed carry permit. We have a security system that would wake the dead. But even now, with him locked up, I can't feel safe. Because one day, maybe in 5 years or maybe 10, he's getting out, and he'd come after us. It was a Friday in late March. I'd been at my buddy's bachelor party, bar hopping downtown until the places started closing. By the time I got to the subway station, it was past 1 a.m., and I was pretty wasted. The station was empty, except for the buzzing fluorescent lights that made everything look washed out. My train wasn't due for another 7 minutes, so I leaned against a pillar, trying to keep the world from spinning. That's when I saw him. Standing under a flickering light, on the opposite platform was this guy wearing a full Chuck E. Cheese mascot getup, complete with gray fur body and an oversized plastic rat head. But the fur was filthy, stained with what looked like oil or dried blood. The costume had tears in it, and the head had cracks around the mouth, like someone had beaten it with a construction hammer. He was just standing there, staring at me through those plastic dead eyes. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling on TikTok to ignore him, but I could still feel his eyes on me. When I glanced back, he hadn't moved an inch. Luckily, my train pulled in just in time. The doors opened and I stumbled inside, grateful to put some distance between me and whatever weirdo was playing dress-up at 1 a.m. Inside, the car was completely empty. I collapsed into a seat near the middle and closed my eyes. Right then, the doors beeped, and I heard squeaky footsteps shuffling around. I opened my eyes, and my blood went cold. The Chuck E. Cheese guy was in my car. When did he cross platforms? I brushed off, thinking he probably changed his mind, and eagerly waited for my stop to arrive. Soon, he would walk to a seat and sat down for maybe 3 seconds before standing up and moving to another seat, then another. He was getting closer to where I was sitting. The squeaking of his costume made my heart race. Hey man, you got a problem? I called out, suddenly pretty sober. My throat felt parched. Something was very wrong here. I stood up and moved to the other end of the car. Much to my horror, he followed with that awful squeaking. I could hear his heavy and wet breathing, plastic head as he kept hopping from seat to seat, like we were playing some sick game. Finally, he sat down directly across from me, close enough that I could smell the awful mixture of sweat and rot and something chemical that made my eyes water. He tilted his head at an unnatural angle till I heard his neck crack. I could see his real eyes now through the mesh in the mascot's mouth. They were bloodshot and wide, with pupils dilated so large they looked black. What's your problem, dude? I yelled, irritated and terrified at the same time. Right then, he reached into the costume's pocket and pulled out a dead rat. He dangled it at my face level for a couple seconds, before he chunked it right at my face. The moment it hit my nose, I lost it. I shirked and jumped. My stomach lurched, and I puked my dinner all over the subway floor. All this while, he just laughed. The sound echoed off the metal walls until it sounded like multiple people were laughing at once. I looked up through tears and saw the next station approaching. The train started slowing down. He was still laughing, standing right behind me when the doors opened. I just stepped